Jon Snow had imagined death as cold, but the truth of it was colder than any wind that had ever come down from the lands beyond the wall. It had not been sleep, nor dream, nor the black comfort men spoke of when they feared the end. It had been absence, a great hollow silence in which even memory had no shape. Then breath had returned like a blade forced between his ribs, and the world had come rushing back with pain, smoke, blood, wool, and the sound of men whispering his name as though they feared it might summon something worse. He stood now in the yard of Castle Black beneath a sky the color of beaten iron, his black cloak hanging from his shoulders as if it belonged to a dead man. In some ways, it did. Snow settled in his hair and on the fur at his collar. He did not brush it away. The cold proved he was alive. The ache in his chest proved it more honestly. The wounds where the knives had entered had closed, but they had not vanished. Each breath tugged at them. Each heartbeat reminded him that brothers of the Night's Watch had put steel into him while calling him traitor. The men avoided his eyes. That was what he noticed most. Men who had once asked his orders now lowered their heads when he passed. Some crossed themselves in the old way, touching brow, heart, and shoulder, though the gods they prayed to had not saved him. Some looked on him with fear, some with wonder, some with the greedy hunger men had when they had seen a miracle and wanted it to mean something useful. Jon wished he could give them meaning. He had none. Davos Seaworth came to him while the last of the mutineers swung in the yard. The bodies turned slowly in the wind. Bowen Marsh's face had gone purple, although Yarwick's boots knocked gently together. Ollie looked smaller in death than he had in life, and that was the cruelest thing of all. Jon had given the boy mercy in the only way left to him. The rope had done what the boy's knife had failed to do. It had ended something. Davos stopped beside him and said nothing for a while. The Onion Knight had always understood the weight of silence better than most highborn men. He stood with his gloved hands clasped, his beard silvered by frost, his plain face drawn with a sorrow he had no need to pretend. "You did what justice required," Davos said at last. Jon watched the bodies turn. "Justice," he said, and the word tasted strange. Is that what it was? It is what command becomes when men break the oath. Jon's mouth twitched, though not into a smile. "My oath ended when they killed me." "Hey," Davos said carefully. "So you said." Jon looked at the wall. It rose beyond the yard like the end of the world, ancient and indifferent. "I did not see anything." Davos turned his head slightly. "When I was dead," Jon said, "there was nothing. No gods, no songs, no father waiting with a lantern, no Robb, no Ygritte, nothing. No." Davos' eyes softened. "I'm sorry. I'm not sure I am." Jon swallowed. The air scraped down his throat. "If there was nothing, then all we have is here. This life. These choices. The people we fail." Davos did not answer that quickly, and Jon was grateful. Too many men filled sorrow with words because they could not bear the shape of it. Across the yard, Melisandre watched them from near the old armory. Her red hair was hidden beneath her hood, yet still, she seemed the only warm thing in Castle Black, a coal buried in ash. Once she had looked at Jon as if she saw kings and fires woven through his bones. Now she looked at him like a woman who had seen her own god answer, and did not understand the answer given. Jon did not understand it either. The gate creaked. A rider came through under escort, small upon a shaggy northern horse, wrapped in sealskin and gray wool. The guards lowered their spears until Ed Tollett recognized the badge pinned to the rider's breast, a black bear on green. "From Bear Island," AD called. The rider slid clumsily from the saddle. He was young, not yet a man, with cheeks cracked red from the cold and hands trembling from the ride. One of his gloves was torn. Ice clung to the hem of his cloak. He looked from face to face until his eyes found Jon, and then he knelt so quickly his knee struck stone. "My lord," the boy said. Jon stiffened. "I am no lord." The boy drew a packet from inside his tunic. It was wrapped in oilcloth. tied with faded cord and sealed with dark wax. The wax had cracked, but the impression remained clear enough. The direwolf of House Stark. The yard seemed to empty of sound. Jon looked down at the seal and felt the world narrow to the space between his hand and the packet. A Stark seal. Not the Flayed man. Not the Black Crow. Not Stannis' crowned stag in flame. A direwolf. Who sent you? Davos asked. Lady Lyanna Mormont, the boy said, breath smoking in white bursts. Her maester found it among old letters carried from the south after the Red Wedding. It was hidden in a false bottom of a raven chest. The lady said it was to be placed only in the hands of Jon Snow, once Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, if he lived. If he lived? Ed muttered. That's a fair condition these days. Jon did not move. The boy held the packet higher. She said the seal was King Robb's. The name struck harder than any knife. Robb died, Dud. For a moment, Jon was back in Winterfell's yard with a wooden sword in his hand, laughing as Robb shoved him into the snow. He saw Robb at 14, red-faced and grinning, calling him slow. Robb at 16, sitting beside him at the feast when King Robert came north, whispering jokes about southern lords. Robb riding away with Grey Wind at his side, crowned by grief before anyone placed iron upon his brow. Robb dead at the Twins with a wolf's head sewn to his body if the stories were true, and gods help them if they were. Jon took the packet. The wax was cold beneath his thumb. He should have opened it at once. Instead, he held it as if it might bleed. Davos watched him without pressing. Tormund had come nearer, his red beard bristling with frost. Melisandre stood very still. Jon broke the seal. Inside was a folded parchment, thick and yellowed by damp, written in a hand he knew as well as his own childhood. Robb had never written elegantly. His letters had always been firm, direct, impatient of ornament. Jon unfolded it with fingers that did not feel like his. At the top were the words, "To Jon Snow, my brother, should Winterfell fall and the North lose its king." Jon stopped reading. The yard blurred. Davos, who had seen kings burn men and men burn kings, lowered his voice. "What is it?" Jon forced himself to look again. Robb's words waited, unchanged by blood, betrayal, death, or the passing of years. "Brother, if this reaches you, then I have failed in the task Father's death placed upon me. I pray that Bran and Rickon live. I pray that Sansa and Arya are restored to us. I pray that Winterfell stands and that you never need these words. But a king does not plan only for hope. A king must plan for treachery, for winter, and for the hour when good men are gone and lesser men take their seats." Jon's breath came harder. "I have signed and sealed a will before my lords, legitimizing you as Jon Stark and naming you my heir should no trueborn child of Eddard Stark be found free and living. Yet a will is only a banner if men have the courage to raise it. What follows is not a plea. It is a command from your king and a request from your brother. Take back Winterfell." The parchment shook in Jon's hand. Tormund frowned. Jon read on. "Do not trust the Boltons. Do not trust the phrase. If Roose Bolton holds Winterfell, he holds it by fear, not love. The North remembers more deeply than Southerners know, but memory alone does not win a war. Strike first at loyalty, not at walls. The houses listed below must be approached in order, with proof, with humility, and with the name of Father upon your tongue. Mormont will answer. Manderly will smile and deny you until the knife is ready beneath his sleeve. Glover will hesitate if Deepwood Mott has suffered. The mountain clans will come for Ned's son if you sit their fires and eat their bread. Serwyn can be turned. Tallheart, if any remain, will bleed for us. Umber is proud, dangerous, and divided by hatred of wildlings. Win them if you can. Blind them if you cannot. Never let a Bolton choose the field." There was more. Names. Roads. Why? Warnings. Hidden stores. Old oaths. A map folded into the parchment, marked in Robb's hand. Jon saw the King's Road, the Wolf's Wood, the White Knife. the mountain paths, Last Hearth, Bear Island, Deepwood Motte, Barrowton, the Dreadfort, Winterfell. Some markings were familiar, some were not. Here, Broken Tower. There, a ford passable only in deep winter. A hunter's track behind a ridge south of Long Lake. Circles around houses that could be moved by honor. Crosses beside those that required fear. A line under one sentence, pressed so hard the ink had nearly torn the page. Ramsay Snow, if legitimized, will be reckless where Roose is patient. Use this. Jon stared at the name. Ramsay Snow. No, Ramsay Bolton now. A bastard made true by a king who had no right to the north. Jon almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. Somewhere south of him, another bastard wore a stolen name and sat inside his father's home. Davos read Jon's face. Robb Stark wrote you a battle plan. Jon folded the parchment slowly, though his hands still trembled. He wrote me a duty. The wind moved through Castle Black. The bodies turned. Men watched, saying nothing, as if even the dead were listening. Jon looked again at the direwolf seal broken in his palm and felt something shift beneath the grief and weariness. Not ambition, never that. He had wanted Winterfell once. As a boy wants the thing denied him because he does not yet understand the cost. He had dreamed of sitting at father's table without shame, of being called Stark without pity, of belonging without the word bastard standing between him and every warm room. Then he had taken the black and buried that dream beneath ice. But Robb had reached into the grave and pulled it out. Not for Jon. For the North. Sansa Stark arrived before sunset with the cold in her bones and terror still clinging to her like a second cloak. The horn sounded from the top of the gate, long and uncertain. Jon was in the armory with Robb's letters spread across the table before him when Ed pushed open the door. Riders, ED said. 3 of them. One big enough to be 2, one small. One looks like she might freeze before she reaches the gate. Jon was moving before Edith finished. He crossed the yard with his cloak snapping behind him. The gate groaned open. Snow blew inward, carrying with it the smell of horse sweat and frozen leather. At first he saw only shapes beyond the tunnel, gray against gray. Then the first rider emerged, tall and broad on a heavy horse, armor hidden under a travel-stained cloak, one hand near the sword at her back. Behind her rode a young man with anxious eyes. Between them, swaying in the saddle as if the last of her strength had been spent simply staying upright, was a woman with red hair. Jon stopped. For one heartbeat he saw Catelyn Stark in grief struck him with old force. Then the woman lifted her face. "Sansa," he breathed. She looked at him as though she did not trust the sight. Her lips parted. Her horse took 2 more steps and stopped of its own accord. No one moved. The whole yard seemed to hold its breath. Then Sansa slid from the saddle. Her legs failed beneath her. Jon caught her before she hit the ground, and she clutched him with a sound that was not quite a sob and not quite his name. He wrapped his arms around her, too stunned at first to do anything else. She was real, thin, shaking, alive. His sister, who had left Winterfell in silken songs and come back to the edge of the world in rags and fury. For a long while neither of them spoke. Sansa pressed her face against his shoulder. "I thought you'd still be here," she whispered. Jon closed his eyes. "I thought I'd never see you again." She gave a broken laugh, then pulled back enough to look at him properly. Her eyes were sharper than he remembered. The girl who had once dreamed of princes had died somewhere far from him. The woman before him had survived in courts where smiles were knives and courtesy was a cage. There was fear in her, yes, but beneath it something harder. "You're cold," he said uselessly. "So are you." That almost made him smile. The tall woman dismounted and came forward. "My lady," she said to Sansa, cautious but not intrusive. Sansa wiped at her face with gloved fingers. "Jon, this is Brienne of Tarth. She swore an oath to our mother to keep me safe." Jon looked at Brienne. The woman stood taller than most men, with a plain, honest face and eyes that did not flinch. A greatsword rose over one shoulder. There was blood on her cloak, old and dark. "You have my thanks," Jon said. "I did only what honor required," Brienne answered. "Honor has grown rare," Davos said, approaching from behind Jon. "Best not call it only anything." Podrick Payne hovered near the horses, looking half-frozen and wholly unsure whether he should bow, smile, or collapse. Sansa's gaze moved past Jon to the yard. She saw the hanging bodies. Her expression changed, but she did not ask. Perhaps she had seen enough dead men to understand when questions could wait. Inside, they brought her to the Lord Commander's chambers. Though Jon no longer felt the title belonged to him, a fire was built high. Bowls of stew appeared. Sansa wrapped both hands around a cup of watered wine and held it near her mouth for warmth before drinking. Brienne stood near the door until Sansa told her gently to sit. Even then, the knight chose a chair from which she could see every entrance. Jon watched Sansa eat. She tried to do it gracefully at first. Then hunger overcame training and she spooned stew quickly, almost angrily, as if resenting the body that needed it. He looked away to spare her pride. After a while, Sansa set the bowl down. "Winterfell," she said. The room changed around that word. Davos leaned back. Ed, who had been lingering at the edge of the room, suddenly found the fire very interesting. Tormund sat with his boots stretched toward the hearth, chewing loudly until Brienne glanced at him. He grinned. She did not. Jon folded his hands. "Tell me." Sansa's fingers tightened around the cup. "Roose Bolton is dead." Jon looked up sharply. "Ramsay killed him," she said. "Or so I believe. Walda Frey too. And her baby." Davos muttered something under his breath. "He is Lord of Winterfell now," Sansa continued. "Lord Bolton, Warden of the North, by the decree of a crown that murdered our father." "No, Jon felt Robb's letter like a weight inside his cloak. Sansa saw something in his face. "You know? I know some." "You don't know him," she said, voice low. "Not truly. You may have heard stories. They are not enough." The fire cracked. She stared into it, and Jon saw the effort it took for her not to look away from memory. "He hurts people because it pleases him," she said. "Not in anger. Not for justice. Not even always for advantage. He studies pain. He learns what breaks a person. Then he waits until they understand there is no rescue." Her mouth tightened. "He has Rickon." Jon went still. "We think so," Brienne said. "There were rumors from the Umbers. Nothing certain." Sansa looked back to Jon. "If Rickon lives, Ramsay will use him. If he dies, Ramsay will use that too. He has our home, our brother, father's halls, Robb's kingdom. We have to take Winterfell back." Jon rose and turned from the fire. For a moment he was not in Castle Black, but in the crypts beneath Winterfell, walking past stone kings with direwolves at their feet. He saw Bran climbing, Rickon running wild through the yard, Arya with her hair tangled and knees muddy, Sansa singing, Robb laughing, father cleaning ice beneath the heart tree. Then the Red Wedding drowned them all. "I left the Night's Watch," Jon said. "My watch ended." Sansa stood too. "Good." He looked at her. "I know what oaths are worth when evil men use them to bind good men into doing nothing," she said. "You died for the watch. Let them keep your corpse if they want the oath. I need my brother." Brother. The word struck deeply, because another brother had written from beyond death. Jon drew Robb's packet from inside his cloak and placed it on the table. Sansa looked at the broken direwolf seal. "What is that?" "A letter," Jon said. "From Robb?" Her face opened in pain so suddenly that Jon wished he had warned her more gently. She reached for the parchment but stopped before touching it, as if the paper might vanish. "That's not possible. It came from Bear Island. Lyanna Mormont's maester found it hidden among old messages. Robb wrote it before the Red Wedding, in case the North fell. Nuntree, and die." Sansa sat slowly. Jon unfolded the first page and gave it to her. She read in silence. Her eyes moved quickly at first, then slowed. When she reached the line naming Jon as heir, her mouth trembled. He expected anger, perhaps shock, perhaps the old wound of being passed over because she was a daughter in a world that weighed sons more heavily. But Sansa only closed her eyes. "He thought we were all dead," she whispered. "He hoped you weren't. But he planned as if we were. He was king," Jon said softly. "He had to." Sansa read further. The fire threw light across her face. It was no longer the face of the girl he remembered. It was not even the face of the captive who had fled Ramsay Bolton. Something else entered her expression as she read Robb's list of houses, warnings, hidden roads, loyalties, fears. Recognition, perhaps. Not of the words, but of the game beneath them. "He learned," she said. Jon frowned. "What?" "Robb, he learned too late, perhaps, but he learned." She touched the parchment. "This is not father's honor. This is not simply banners and vows." He understood shame, fear, delay, tide, pride. He knew some men need permission to be brave, and others need a knife at their throat before they remember loyalty. "Mind." Davos' brows rose slightly, but he said nothing. Sansa looked at Jon. "This can work. It is not enough by itself." "No," she said, "but it is more than we had this morning." Jon took the map and spread it across the table. Tormund leaned over it upside down. Brienne came closer. Davos stood beside Jon. Ed hovered. Melisandre, who had entered without sound, remained in the shadows near the door. Sansa pointed to Bear Island. "The Mormonts will answer if Lyanna sent this." "Small house," Davos said. "Fierce, but small." "Small houses remember when great ones forget," Sansa replied. Jon pointed to White Harbor. "Robb says Manderly will deny us until he is ready." "He will," Sansa said. "The Manderlys are rich, not foolish. They cannot rise first." "Then who does?" Davos asked. "The dead," Sansa said. They all looked at her. She tapped the map where the twins would have been far to the south, beyond the parchment's edge. "The men murdered at the Red Wedding. Their sons, their brothers, their widows. Ramsay holds the north because everyone believes everyone else is too afraid to move. We do not need to convince them they love us. We need to convince them they are not alone." Jon studied her. "How?" Sansa looked at Robb's letter. "We make Robb speak." The room fell silent. Sansa's voice hardened. "Not as a ghost, as a king." Every lord who bent to the Boltons did so by telling himself House Stark was finished. Bran and Rickon gone. Arya lost. Me sold. You trapped at the wall. Robb dead without heir. This letter breaks that lie. If they ignore it, they are not cautious men surviving hard times. They are oathbreakers choosing the flayed man over the direwolf. Tormund grunted. "Red's got teeth now." Brienne gave him a look cold enough to freeze ale. Jon looked down at the map again. He wanted to feel hope. Instead, he felt the terrible weight of direction. Before the letter, Winterfell had been a wound. Now, it was a command. Sansa touched his sleeve. "Robb chose you. He chose me because he thought you were dead. He chose you because he trusted you. I will not take Winterfell from you." Her eyes sharpened. "You cannot take what Ramsay already stole." "I mean it, Sansa. So do I." She stepped closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "Do not make this about your shame. I know what it is to be used as someone else's claim. I know what it is to be passed from hand to hand like a key to a castle. I'm telling you now, freely, that the North will need you. Not instead of me, beside me, beside me." Jon could not answer. For years he had carried the name Snow like a brand. It had marked every meal, every lesson, every glance from Lady Catelyn. Robb had never made him feel lesser, But Robb had been true-born, beloved, heir to all Jon secretly wanted. Now Robb's will offered him the name he had buried, and Sansa's eyes offered neither resentment nor pity, only necessity. "What if they will not follow a bastard?" he asked. Sansa looked at the broken seal. "Then we show them a king made you Stark before a usurper made Ramsay Bolton." Davos nodded slowly. "That has a ring to it." Jon turned toward the fire. The flames moved like banners. For a moment, in their shifting light, he almost saw Robb as he had been on the day he rode south. Young, bright, certain he could avenge father and return with all their wounds healed. Robb had not returned, but his words had. "Not yet," Jon said. Sansa frowned. "What?" "We do not announce the will yet. Not to everyone. If we shout it from the wall, Ramsay hears before the North does. He kills Rickon, fortifies every road, sends ravens to every frightened lord. Robb says strike first at loyalty, not walls. We do this quietly." "No." Sansa studied him, and for the first time since she arrived, something like approval softened her face. "You sound like him," she said. Jon looked at the map. "No, but I can follow him." Outside, the wind struck Castle Black hard enough to rattle the shutters. The wall groaned faintly, old ice shifting under older burdens. Jon wondered how many kings had made plans beneath winter skies, believing they could command men against darkness. Robb had made one. Now it lay before him, inked in a dead boy's hand. Jon placed his palm over Winterfell. "We start with Bear Island," he said. "Then the clans. Then White Harbor." "And Rickon?" Sansa asked. Jon's fingers curled slightly against the map. "We find him before Ramsay learns we are coming." The first council of the Second Stark War was held in a room that still smelled of damp wool, smoke, and old crow feathers. There were no carved chairs, no banners, no maesters with silver chains waiting to record bold declarations. Castle Black offered only rough tables, cracked stone, and men too tired to pretend history cared about comfort. The map of the North lay weighted by a dagger, a cup, a black stone from the yard, and the broken hilt of a practiced sword Ed found somewhere and declared useful because no one else wanted it. Jon stood at the head of the table because no one else chose the place. Sansa stood opposite him, her hair combed now, her torn traveling cloak replaced by black wool. She looked more like a Stark in mourning than a girl rescued from terror. Brienne stood at her shoulder. Davos sat with his elbows on his knees, studying the parchment as though it were a smuggler's chart of dangerous waters. Tormund drank sour ale from a horn, and occasionally frowned at the markings as if Robb had personally insulted him by drawing south at the bottom. Ed leaned near the door. "Just so we're all clear," he said, "we're planning to take Winterfell with a dead king's letter. A handful of wildlings, one large woman, a smuggler, a red witch, and whatever northern lords aren't too scared to answer." "Sir," Brienne corrected. Ed blinked. "Sir large woman?" Podrick made a strangled sound. Brienne's hand moved slightly toward her sword. "Sirs are knights," she said. "Eh," Ed said. "That was the part I meant." Davos coughed into his fist. Jon almost smiled despite himself. "Almost. We are not taking Winterfell with what we have," Jon said. "We are taking Winterfell by making Ramsay believe that is all we have." Sansa nodded. "Ramsay likes certainty. He likes knowing where fear sits in a person. If he believes Jon has only free folk and a few loyal fools, he will want him close. He will want to humiliate him in the open." Tormund snorted. "Let him come close. I'll split his belly and read his fear in the steam." "That is exactly what he wants," Sansa said. Tormund looked at her. "He wants his belly split. He wants rage," she said. "He wants men to forget the battle and remember only him. If he can make Jon charge blindly, he wins before swords meet." "Nay, Kai, der, and down the ball." Jon looked at her across the map. There were things in her voice he hated because he knew who had taught them. Ramsay had left wounds no one could see, and from those wounds Sansa had drawn knowledge sharp enough to cut him back. Jon wished she had never needed such knowledge. Since she had it, he would use it, if she offered. He would not waste her pain by pretending it had taught her nothing. Davos tapped White Harbor. Robb says Lord Manderly is key. He has coin, ships, food, and men, Sansa said. And he hates the phrase. A useful hatred, Davos said. He will not rise for a rumor, Jon said. Davos, you will go to him. Davos lifted his brows. May? You served Stannis. You treated with northern houses. You speak plainly. Manderly will expect a northern lord or Sansa herself. He may not expect you. He may not hear me. Then make him, Sansa said. Lord Wyman enjoys mummery. Give him truth and let him pretend not to want it. Davos smiled faintly. My lady, I spent half my life convincing customs men they hadn't seen onions in my hold. I can talk to a fat lord who thinks he's clever. Me, betrayal. He is clever, Sansa warned. Do not mistake his body for his mind. I won't. Jon touched Bear Island on the map. The Mormonts first. They've already sent the letter, Ed said. Seems promising. A letter is not spears, Jon replied. And Lyanna Mormont is a child ruling a poor island while half her fighting men died with Robb. Children have ruled harder places, Sansa said quietly. Jon knew she was thinking of herself. He moved his finger east. The Umbers worry me. They should, Sansa said. Tormund leaned forward. These are the ones who hate us. They hate wildlings, Jon said. They followed Robb. Great Jon Umber was one of the first to name him king in the north. But Small Jon is not his father. Robb wrote divided, Davos said, reading the note beside Last Hearth. Proud, dangerous, and divided by hatred of wildlings. Win them if you can. Blind them if you cannot. Blind them? Ed asked. That's cheerful. It means deny them certainty, Sansa said. If Small Jon does not know whether the Manderlys, Mormonts, and clans are moving, he may hesitate before giving Rickon to Ramsay. Jon's jaw tightened. If he has Rickon. The room quieted. No one had wanted to say too much about Rickon. Hope made fools of men in war. Jon knew that. He had seen brothers beyond the wall hear one cry in the dark and run toward it because they needed it to be someone living. Often, it was not. But Rickon was a Stark. A boy, their brother. If he lived, everything changed. If he died because Jon moved too slowly, that would change everything too. Sansa folded her hands. Ramsay needs Rickon more than he needs any castle. A living son of Eddard Stark threatens him. A dead one can frighten us, but a living one can be used to bait us, bargain with the Umbers, or break the loyalty of wavering houses. You will not kill Rickon unless forced. You sound sure, Jon said. I sound as sure as I can bear to be. That was answer enough. Melisandre spoke from the shadows. There are powers in King's blood. Jon turned on her so sharply that even Tormund stopped drinking. No. The word cracked through the room. Melisandre lowered her eyes. I did not mean. I know what you meant. You will not speak of Rickon's blood again. The Red Woman bowed her head, but Jon saw pain cross her face. Perhaps guilt. Perhaps only the humiliation of a prophet whose God had led her through ashes. He had no mercy to give her for that. Not now. Davos' face had gone hard as old wood. Best leave that road buried. Hey, Jon said. Buried deep. For a while only the fire spoke. Then Sansa said, the veil. Jon looked at her. Littlefinger will offer it, she continued. If he has not already sent riders, he will. He will claim he wants to rescue me, avenge our family, restore justice, whatever pretty lie suits the hour. Nay, die, Brienne's expression darkened. You should not trust him. I don't. Davos rubbed his fingers together thoughtfully. Knights of the Vale would be a powerful addition, and a dangerous debt, Sansa said. Petyr Baelish never gives anything. He invests. Jon remembered the man only vaguely from Winterfell and King's Landing stories. Small, smiling, perfumed, always standing near greater men while somehow making them less. Can he bring the Vale north? He can convince Lord Robin to send them if he dresses ambition as chivalry, Sansa said. The Vale stayed out of the war. Its knights are fresh, armored, disciplined. If we use them too early, Northern lords will say Winterfell was retaken by Southerners. If we refuse them entirely, we may die proud and useless. Shh. What do we do? Ed asked. Sansa looked at Jon. We let Littlefinger believe he is our hidden knife, but we decide where the knife falls. Davos chuckled softly. Remind me never to play Sivas with you, my lady. I don't play, Sansa said. Jon believed her. He looked down at Robb's map, and the names seemed to rise like voices. Mormont, .U, Manderly, Glover, Umber, Serwyn, Reed. Though Greywater Watch was marked only with a question, and the words impossible to find unless they wish it. Karstark was marked in darker ink, grief turned bitter. Bolton was circled twice. The Dreadfort had one note beside it. Do not waste men on stone while Winterfell is held by fear. Robb had known. Not everything. Not enough to save himself, but enough to leave a path. Jon traced the Wolfswood. We move in pieces. No grand summons. No king's proclamation. Davos to White Harbor. Sansa rides to Bear Island, Deepwood Motte, and the Serwins. I go to the mountain clans. No, you? Brienne said. They will not answer parchment. They might answer Lady Sansa. They might, Jon said. But Robb wrote they would come for Ned's son if he sat their fires. I can do that. Sansa watched him carefully. You are Ned's son. Jon heard the meaning beneath the words. Not bastard. Not half. Son Dadia. He looked away first. Tormund, Jon said. I need the free folk gathered but held north of the gift until I send word. No raids. No hunting near northern villages without permission. No taking livestock. No settling old scores. Nah. Tormund's face twisted. You want me to tell free folk they cross the wall to obey kneelers? I want you to tell them if they want land south of the wall, they need the north alive. Ramsay will use every stolen sheep as proof they are invaders. Every dead farmer as proof I betrayed my people. Do not give him weapons. Tormund studied him, then grunted. Some won't like it. Will they obey you? They'll obey me if I break enough noses. Break only what you must. That's not as much fun. It rarely is, Davos said. Jon turned to Ed. You hold Castle Black. Ed's face fell into familiar misery. I was afraid you'd say that. You're the best man for it. That's what people say when they want to ruin your life politely. Jon clasped his shoulder. The wall must hold. If we fail in the south, the dead still come from the north. Ed's humor faded. Hey, I know. For all their planning, that shadow remained. The army of the dead. The Night King. Hardhome burning blue in Jon's memory. Every road on Robb's map led to Winterfell. But beyond the wall there were no roads, only winter and silence and eyes like frozen stars. Sansa noticed his expression. What is it? Jon wanted to say, you have not seen them. He wanted to say, we are fighting over a castle while death gathers in numbers no castle can withstand. But she had seen monsters enough. Different monsters. Living ones. The North has to be united, he said. Not only for Winterfell, for the dead, Davos said. Brienne looked between them. Podrick swallowed. Sansa did not mock it. She had changed too much for easy disbelief. Then we take Winterfell first. Yes. And after? Jon looked at Robb's letter. After, we make them listen. The council ended near midnight, though none of them truly slept. Davos left before dawn with 2 trusted riders. Robb's secondary seal, and a copy of the first page hidden in the lining of his cloak. Sansa wrote letters in a hand that had once practiced songs and courtesies, and now shaped summons like blades. Brienne sharpened her sword by the fire. Tormund went to speak to the free folk, grumbling about Neeler sheep and southern manners. Melisandre prayed in silence. Ed complained to anyone who came close enough that he had survived the fist of the first men, mutiny, wildlings, and whites, only to be murdered by paperwork. Jon did not sleep because the dead had taught him sleep was no refuge. Before dawn, he went to the top of the wall. The lift groaned beneath him. When he stepped out, the world opened into whiteness. The lands beyond stretched endless and pale, forests black beneath snow, mountains like broken teeth against the sky. Somewhere out there, the true enemy moved. Somewhere behind him, Winterfell waited in the hands of a butcher. Jon drew Robb's letter from his cloak and unfolded it one more time. "Take back Winterfell." The words no longer felt like a command alone. They felt like a bridge between the brother who had died and the brother who had returned. Robb had fought the war of the living and lost to treachery. Jon had seen the war of the dead and knew no house could survive it alone. Their wars were not separate. They never had been. He folded the letter and placed it over his heart. Below, Castle Black began to stir. Horses were saddled. Ravens screamed. Men whispered. The sky lightened without warmth. Jon Snow, who had been murdered by his brothers and raised by a god he did not worship, looked south toward the home that had never been his and now had to be. The mountain clans did not come to men who shouted from roads. Jon learned that before the first day ended. He rode south and west with Tormund, 3 black brothers who had chosen loyalty over fear, 2 free folk trackers, and ghosts slipping through the trees like a shard of winter-given teeth. They took no banner. Robb's plan warned against banners too early. A direwolf raised before the wrong eyes would bring ravens to Winterfell faster than horses could outrun them. The wolf's wood closed around them, dark and deep beneath its burden of snow. Pines creaked. Branches bowed. The road dwindled into a hunter's path and then into nothing any Southron lord would have recognized as passage. Jon knew woods. He had hunted with Robb and Theon under Father's eye, had learned where snow-covered roots and where silence meant deer rather than danger. But the clans knew these lands as a man knew the lines in his own palm. They saw the first sign near dusk. 3 stones stacked beside a frozen stream. The top one split cleanly down the middle. Tormund spat. "That means something?" "It means they know we're here," Jon said. "How do you know?" "Because that stone was not split by weather." One of the free folk trackers, a thin woman named Morna with a scar down her chin, crouched beside the stones. 5 men at least. Maybe more. Watching since morning. Ed was not there to make a gloomy remark, and Jon missed him for it. They camped without fire at first. When full dark fell, Jon ordered one lit anyway. Tormund raised an eyebrow. "Thought we were hiding." "Not from them." The fire took slowly, licking damp wood with resentful orange tongues. The men huddled close, though Jon stayed at the edge of the light. Ghost lay beside him, ears pricked toward the trees. The direwolf had grown restless as they moved south, not fearful but alert. He sensed eyes. Near midnight, a voice spoke from the dark. Benjen Stark had better sense than to bring wildlings to clan fires. Tormund's hand went to his axe. Jon lifted one finger and he stopped, though not happily. A man stepped into the firelight. He was broad and old, with a beard like tangled gray wire and a cloak made of goat hides. 3 more emerged behind him. Then 6. Then more, until the darkness seemed to grow men. They carried spears, axes, old swords, bows of mountain yew. Their faces were weathered hard as bark. Jon rose slowly. "I am Jon Snow." "We know what you call yourself," the old man said. "Question is what blood answers." "Ned Stark's." At that, murmurs moved among the clansmen. Not loud, not soft. The old man's eyes narrowed. Any man can claim dead blood. Dead men don't correct lies. Ghost stood. The clansmen shifted. One raised his spear. Jon put a hand on Ghost's neck, not to restrain him, but to show he could. My father brought me to Winterfell as a babe, Jon said. He raised me with his children. He taught me that the man who passes the sentence should swing the sword. He taught me a lord eats last when men are hungry, listens first when men are frightened, and keeps faith when faith has a cost. If that is not enough, I carry the words of his true-born son. He drew Robb's letter. The old man did not step closer. Paper burns. So do men? Tormund muttered. Jon ignored him. Robb Stark wrote to me before he died. He named the mountain clans as men who would remember my father when flatter lords forgot him. That stirred them more than the seal. The old man looked at Ghost, then at Jon. What did the young wolf write of us? Jon unfolded the page marked with the clan notes. He did not offer it at once. Robb had written warnings there too, including which clan chiefs feuded with which and which might demand blood price before loyalty. Jon would not expose every word. He wrote that the wolves would come if asked beneath open sky, not summoned like servants. That the Norries would distrust any lord who brought too much silver. That the Littles would listen if father's name was spoken before Robb's. That the Burleys would count spears before vows, but keep vows once given. Jon paused. He wrote that the clans did not kneel to comfort, but to memory. The old man's face changed. What else? Jon looked at him steadily. That if Winterfell fell and Boltons held the bones of kings, the clans would not forgive the son of Eddard Stark for hiding behind vows at the wall. The fire snapped. Tormund looked at Jon with something like surprise. The old man grunted. Young wolf had a mouth on him from afar. He had your measure. Aye, maybe. What is your name? Jon asked. Pugo Wool, the man said. Called Big Bucket by men who don't mind bleeding. Jon inclined his head. Then I asked beneath open sky, Hugo Wool. Winterfell is held by Ramsay Bolton. My sister fled him. My brother Rickon may be in danger. The North is afraid because each house thinks it stands alone. Robb left a plan to prove otherwise. I need men who remember Ned Stark. Big Bucket's eyes flicked to Tormund. And you bring raiders. I bring men who fled death. Wildlings have killed clan boys for thousands of years. And clan boys have killed wildlings, Tormund said. You want to count bones, old man? We'll be here until the others come south and count ours. Several clansmen growled. Jon stepped between them. Enough. Big Bucket smiled without warmth. Your red beast speaks bold. My red beast speaks too often, Jon said. Tormund barked a laugh. Jon continued. The free folk are under my protection and my command. Any who raid northern lands will answer to me. Any northern man who murders them under peace will answer the same. I will not pretend old blood vanishes because I ask it. But Ramsay Bolton wants us divided by every old hatred we own. I will not give him that victory before we reach his gates. Nay. The old man studied him a long time. You sound like Ned, he said at last. But Ned Stark never came asking with wildlings at his back. Ned Stark never saw dead men rise. Silence fell. The clansmen were hard men, but not fools. Rumors had come south. Rangers had whispered. Refugees from Hardhome had carried stories no sane singer would invent. Jon saw disbelief, but not dismissal. Big Bucket spat into the snow. My grandfather told me tales of dead things in the old dark. I thought they were for frightening boys into sleeping near the fire. So did I, Jon said. And now? Now I know boys should listen. That won him a few grim laughs. The old man came closer at last and held out his hand. Jon gave him the page with Robb's words about the clans, keeping the larger plan folded. Big Bucket could read, though slowly. His lips moved. When he reached Robb's line about memory, his jaw tightened. The young wolf died bad, he said. Yes. Your father died worse. Yes. And now the Flayed men sit in Winterfell. For now. Big Bucket handed back the parchment. Come then, Ned's son. Sit. Eat what we have. Speak the rest. I brought little to offer. If we wanted gifts, we'd rob you. The old man nodded toward Tormund. We may yet rob him. Tormund grinned. Try it and I'll marry your daughter just to spite you. My daughters would eat you, Big Bucket said. Good women, then. The clansmen laughed properly this time, and some of the tension left with it. More fires were lit deeper in the trees, hidden beneath a rock shelf where smoke drifted sideways through pine cover. The clan camp had been there all along, close enough to kill Jon's party before they knew they were surrounded. Children peered from behind carts. Women in furs tended pots and watched the strangers with open suspicion. Men offered bowls of goat stew thick with barley. Jon ate every bite and praised it honestly because he was hungry enough for honesty. They spoke until the moon climbed pale behind cloud. Big Bucket listened while Jon explained what he could. Robb's will, the hidden plan, Sansa's escape, Rickon's uncertain fate, the need to move without alerting Ramsay. He did not speak of every alliance. Robb had warned against giving one lord another lord's courage before it had hardened. When Jon finished, Big Bucket leaned back and wiped grease from his beard. You ask for spears, he said. Yes. How many? As many as can move fast and keep quiet. That's not how lords ask. I am not asking as a lord. No? What are you asking as? Nah. How? Jon looked at the fire. In the flames he saw Castle Black, the knives, Robb's letter. Sansa's hands clenched around a cup, Winterfell's gray walls under Bolton banners. A brother, he said. Big Bucket's expression shifted again, less visibly this time. My father took me to Winterfell once, the old man said. I was younger than you. Thought the castle too soft. Too many walls. Too many people bowing to each other. Then your father came down to the yard with no cloak fine enough for a lord and asked my father about a sick cousin by name. Remembered the man from a hunt 3 years past. That was Ned Stark. He made small men feel seen and great men feel judged. Nay. Jon swallowed. Hey, Big Bucket said. We remember. By morning, the wolves had promised 200 fighters. By the next evening, after Jon rode with Big Bucket to a Nori camp hidden along a frozen ravine, that number doubled. The Noris demanded to hear Robb's words twice. One woman, old and nearly blind, touched the direwolf seal and wept without sound. Her 3 sons had died in the Whispering Wood. Her 4th had vanished at the twins. For him, she said. For the boy king. At the little fires, Jon was asked whether Sansa lived. When he said yes, a young fighter with a scarred cheek said, Then Ned's girl must see us when we march. She will, Jon promised. At the Burly Holdfast, men argued half the night about wildlings. Tormund solved part of it by drinking their strongest liquor without falling, and part of it by allowing one of their champions to punch him in the face. Then he punched the man back, knocked him into a snowbank, helped him up, and called him brother. By dawn, the Burleys had agreed to send men so long as they did not have to sleep beside the free folk, unless battle required it. Battle makes strange beds, Tormund said cheerfully. Say that near Lady Brienne and she'll remove your tongue, Jon warned. Worth it. The clans came not like an army in songs, but like winter itself. Quietly at first, then and everywhere. Men with axes, women with bows, boys old enough to carry spears and old men too stubborn to remain behind. They did not polish armor or sing of glory. They packed dried meat, checked bowstrings, sharpened steel, kissed children, and vanished into trees by routes no Bolton scout would find until his throat was open. Jon watched them gather and felt the first true piece of Robb's plan settle into place. Yet hope remained dangerous. On the 4th night, as they camped beneath a cliff face veined with ice, Ghost returned from the dark with blood on his muzzle and a strip of leather between his teeth. Jon took it. A Bolton strap. black leather. Flayed man stamped faintly near the buckle. Tormund crouched beside him. Scouts. Jon nodded. How many? Ghost looked toward the south, ears flat. A horn sounded once in the dark. Not theirs. The clans were on their feet in a breath. Big Bucket emerged from the shadows with axe in hand, grinning like a man who had been waiting years to be given permission. Seems the flayed men have come looking. Jon folded the strap in his fist. Take one alive, he said. Tormund's grin matched the old man's. Now that sounds like a lord. No, Jon said, drawing long claw as the forest stirred around him. That sounds like Robb. White Harbor smelled of salt, smoke, and secrets. Davos Seaworth had known ports all his life. He knew the difference between a city at peace and a city pretending. White Harbor pretended beautifully. Its walls stood pale against the gray water, its towers capped with snow, its quays crowded with fishermen, traders, sailors, and carts full of barrels. The merman banners of House Manderly snapped above the gates in the cold wind. Bells rang. Merchants shouted. Fishwives cursed with admirable invention. On the surface, the city lived as cities must live, because hunger did not pause for treason. But Davos saw the rest. Too many guards at the inner gate. Too many men watching strangers without seeming to watch. Fray colors glimpsed near an alehouse and then gone. A Bolton man pretending to inspect cargo while his hand never strayed far from his sword. Fear moved through White Harbor dressed as routine. Davos entered as a poor envoy of no great importance, which was the safest kind to be. He wore a weathered cloak, kept his gloves on, and carried no banner. The copy of Robb Stark's first page was sewn into the lining at his shoulder. The seal Jon had given him lay hidden beneath the false bottom of a small box of onions. He had insisted on the onions himself. Why onions? Sansa had asked before he left Castle Black. Because no one looks twice at an onion from Davos Seaworth, he had said. And if they do, they deserve the tears. Now, inside White Harbor's new castle, Davos waited in a hall too warm for his comfort, while servants brought food he had not requested. Lamprey pie, buttered carrots, dark bread, white fish and cream, a platter of little cakes shaped like shells. The generosity was a performance. That made it dangerous. Lord Wyman Manderly entered, carried in a chair by strong men, though Davos suspected the lord could walk well enough when no one watched. He was enormous, swathed in green velvet and white fur, his beard carefully combed, his small eyes bright within folds of flesh. He smiled like a man delighted by everything and fooled by nothing. Sir Davos Seaworth, Wyman boomed. The Onion Knight himself. Once hand to a dead king, unless my ravens lie. And, Gundiya. Your ravens likely know more than I do, my lord. Manderly laughed. A modest smuggler. The gods do delight in contradiction. Sit, eat. A man who refuses food in White Harbor insults my table, my cook, and possibly my ancestors. Davos sat. He did not eat yet. Manderly noticed. Of course he did. You come from the wall? I do. Cold place. Getting colder. So I hear. The dead walk, wildlings settle, and brothers of the knights watch stab their commanders. The north has become a singer's nightmare. Nay, some singers lack imagination. Manderly's smile remained, but his eyes sharpened. And what song do you bring me? Davos looked at the servants. Manderly waved one plump hand. Leave us. My lord, one guard began. Leave us, Manderly repeated, still smiling. The room emptied slowly. Not completely, Davos guessed. There would be ears behind panels or doors. A lord like Wyman Manderly survived by arranging to know what men thought he did not know. Davos waited until the last visible servant withdrew. Then he placed an onion on the table. Manderly stared at it. Is this tribute? Something like that. Davos took his knife and cut the onion cleanly in half. The smell rose sharp and familiar. Within the hollowed center, wrapped in waxed cloth, lay the broken direwolf seal. Manderly's smile vanished. For the first time since Davos had entered, the Lord's face showed the man beneath the mummery. "Where did you get that?" "From Jon Snow." Manderly did not touch it. "The Lord Commander. No longer. Dead, some say." "He was." The Lord's gaze lifted. Davos let the silence sit. He had learned long ago that truth sounded madder when hurried. Manderly leaned back. "I am too old for riddles and too fat for shocks. Speak plainly." Robb Stark wrote a will before he died. He legitimized Jon Snow as Jon Stark, and named him heir if no trueborn child of Eddard Stark could be found free and living. Alongside that will, he left instructions for retaking the north if Winterfell fell to enemies. "Your name in those instructions." Manderly's fingers curled against the arms of his chair. "My name appears in many dead men's plans," he said. "Not like this." Davos removed the sewn copy from his shoulder lining. It hurt to tear the stitching, but that could be repaired. He unfolded the parchment and slid it across the table. Manderly stared at it as if it were a knife pointed at his belly. He read slowly. His face changed less than Davos expected, but his breathing did. When he reached the line about Manderly smiling and denying until the knife was ready beneath his sleeve, his mouth twitched. "The young wolf grew teeth," he murmured. "He had need of them." Manderly looked up. "Does Jon Snow have the will?" "Yes." "The full will?" "Yes." "And Lady Sansa?" "Alive, at Castle Black." The Lord's eyes closed briefly. Davos understood then that whatever else Manderly was, whatever games he played beneath velvet and fat, he had loved the Starks in the fierce northern way that did not always speak until blood was called. "And Arya?" Manderly asked. "Unknown." "Bran?" "Unknown, Dart die." "Rickon?" Davos hesitated. Manderly saw it. The air thickened. "What do you know?" the Lord asked. "Only rumors. That he may be with the Umbers. That Ramsay Bolton may be hunting for him." "No." Manderly's face became a mask of grief and calculation. "Small John," he said softly. "Fool boy, proud as a spear and half as wise. You know something. I know too many things and not enough of the one that matters." Manderly reached for a cup, then seemed to think better of drinking. There were whispers, a wildling woman, a boy with a wolf, last hearth. Men said the Umbers had them. Men say many things when the Boltons pay for ears. "Can you find him?" Manderly looked insulted. "Sir Davos, I can find a crab beneath a dock if it owes me silver." "Then find him." The Lord's eyes hardened. "Careful." Davos leaned forward. "No, my lord. We are past careful. Careful brought Roose Bolton into Winterfell. Careful let Freys drink in northern halls. Careful let every loyal house wait for another to rise first. Robb Stark is dead. Eddard Stark is dead. If Rickon lives and Ramsay gets him, careful will put another Stark boy in the ground." Manderly's face flushed. For a moment, Davos wondered if he had gone too far. He had spoken to kings, but kings could kill a man quickly. Lords killed slowly when pride was wounded. Then Manderly laughed. It was not his earlier booming performance. It was low and dangerous. "You speak like a man with nothing to inherit. I lost 4 sons on the Blackwater. Inheritance is ashes to me." The laughter died. Manderly looked at him with something like respect. "Ay, I had heard. I do not ask for pity. No, nor do I." The Lord looked down at Robb's words again. "My son Wendell died at the Twins. Guessed right, butchered under Lord Walder's roof while the Freys smiled through blood. I have eaten with Freys since. I have toasted them. I have called them friends. Men think fat makes humiliation painless. It does not." "No, Daddy." Davos said nothing. Manderly touched the direwolf seal at last. "The North remembers," he whispered. Then his expression shifted, and Lord Wyman returned, smiling faintly. "But memory must be fed, Sir Davos. Armies eat more than vengeance." "No. Can you supply us?" "I can supply ghosts, rumors, missing carts, bad roads, generous fishermen, and perhaps a few ships that sail with cargo. No manifest records. Openly? No, not yet." "What do you need?" "Proof that Jon can command the wildlings." "He can. Your word is wind. I need reports. No raids, no stolen cattle, no dead villagers. The Umbers will run to Ramsay if they think a wildling horde comes south. Jon knows." Good. I need the Mormonts to answer." "Nah, they will. I need the clans moving. They are being approached now." Manderly smiled wider. "Jon himself, I wager. Robb's note said they would like that." Davos frowned. "You know the note?" "I know Robb Stark knew men better than his enemies believed. I also know he wrote to more than one hand before the end." Manderly tapped the parchment. "This confirms what I hoped was true." Davos sat back. "You had a piece of the plan. A whisper of one. Not the will. Not dawn. Enough to wait. Enough to prepare. Nay. And have you?" Manderly's smile became almost kindly. "Sir Davos, beneath this city are cellars full of grain counted twice. Salted fish marked spoiled. Spears ordered for harbor watchmen who do not exist. And silver hidden from men who believe my appetite consumes all. I have been preparing since my son's bones came home without just." Davos felt the first true warmth since entering White Harbor. "Then declare." "No." The warmth dimmed. Manderly's voice remained pleasant. "If I declare today, Bolton ravens fly by dusk. Frey throats begin whispering by nightfall. My granddaughters are watched. My ships are watched. My household is watched. Ramsay kills Rickon if he has him, or sends men to seize him if he does not. I will not swing before the rope is around the right neck." "No." Davos could not deny the sense of it. "What will you do?" "Send men who are not mine to places I have never heard of, carrying goods I do not own. Ask questions I did not ask. Misplace ravens. Delay Bolton messengers with broken bridges and sick horses. Feed your army without admitting it exists. And find the boy. If the gods have not abandoned us completely." "Nah. Jon needs more than shadows. He shall have them when shadows become swords." Manderly leaned forward, and for all his size, he seemed suddenly swift. "Tell Jon Snow this. If Rickon lives, the North has its lord. If Rickon dies, the North has its martyr. If Robb named Jon Stark, then the North has its sword. But swords break when swung too soon." Davos nodded slowly. "And Sansa?" Manderly's gaze softened again. "Tell Lady Sansa that White Harbor has not forgotten her father's justice, her mother's grief, or her brother's crown. Tell her the merman swims beneath ice." "I will." "No," Manderly said. "You will not return yet." Davos stiffened. The Lord clapped his hands. A side door opened, and a young woman entered with dark hair, sharp eyes, and a plain servant's dress too clean to belong to a servant. "My granddaughter Willa," Manderly said. "She has more courage than patience, which makes her useful and exhausting. She will take you to someone who has heard recent word from last hearth." "No." Willa Manderly looked Davos up and down. "You're shorter than I expected. I was taller before kings started asking favors." She smiled despite herself. Manderly's expression darkened. "Go quietly. Trust no man wearing a Flayed badge. Trust no Frey even if he smiles with both hands visible. And Sir Davos?" Davos turned at the door. "If the boy lives," Manderly said, "bring him north of the knife. If he cannot be brought, send word. I have men who still remember how to drown enemies without troubling the surface." "None. Davos believed him. He followed Willa through a side passage where the stones sweated and the air smelled of wax. Behind him, in the warm hall, Lord Wyman Manderly began calling loudly for more pie, more wine, and someone to find out why no one had entertained his guests properly. The performance resumed, but beneath White Harbor, the knife was moving. Sansa wrote until her fingers cramped. The ink froze if left too near the window and smoked if placed too close to the fire, so she kept the pot in the narrow middle ground between winter and flame. Castle Black had no proper solar, no polished desk, no sand fine enough for elegant drying. She wrote on a scarred table beneath a shutter that rattled in the wind. Her letters were sealed with plain wax, because the direwolf seal could not yet be risked on every raven. Instead, she used words as the seal. To Lady Lyanne Mormont she wrote first, because Bear Island had begun this turn of fate. Sansa thanked her not like a queen flattering a vassal, but like a daughter of Winterfell acknowledging courage where grown men had failed. She did not beg. She did not command. She wrote that Robb Stark's words had reached Jon's hands, that the North had not been forgotten, and that a time would soon come when every house must decide whether fear had made them Bolton men or grief had kept them Stark. To House Glover she wrote differently. Robb's plan warned that Deepwood Mott's losses would make them bitter, so she did not soften the truth. She wrote of Ironborn occupation, of northern abandonment, of the cruel arithmetic of war, in which loyal houses suffered while cautious ones survived. Then she wrote that Ramsay Bolton's peace was not peace, but a long surrender, and that if House Glover waited until victory was certain, victory would belong to someone braver. To the Serwins she wrote of proximity and shame. Their lands lay too near Winterfell for ignorance. They knew what had been done. They knew who held the castle. She asked how long a house could live in the shadow of the Flayed man and still call itself Northern. To smaller houses she wrote shorter letters, each shaped by Robb's notes. A dead uncle named, a son lost at the twins, a debt father had forgiven, a judgment Ned Stark had made fairly when other lords would have taken advantage. She used memory like a key. Not every lock would open, but some would. Brienne watched for a long while before speaking. You write like you know them. I know what Robb knew, Sansa said, not looking up. And what you know. The quill paused. Sansa looked at the page, where a drop of ink had fattened at the end of a word. What I know came at cost. Yes, I used to think courtesy was a song everyone agreed to sing, Sansa said. Then I learned it is armor. Then I learned it is a blade. Now I am trying to learn when it can be a bridge. Brienne considered this. You should not have had to learn any of it. No, Sansa resumed writing. But I did. Podrick Payne sat across from her, carefully warming wax without burning it. He had proven more useful than she expected. Not because he was graceful, but because he tried very hard to do exactly as instructed. There was comfort in that. Men who tried to obey simple tasks without turning them into displays of importance were rare. This one to Bear Island, my lady? Podrick asked. Yes, use the smaller seal. He nodded solemnly, as if entrusted with a king's ransom. Brienne moved closer to the table. You haven't written to the Vale. No. Will you? Sansa leaned back. Her shoulders ached. Not yet. Littlefinger may move without being asked. He already has, I imagine. Brienne's mouth tightened. Then we should warn Jon. I have. Warn him more. That made Sansa smile faintly. You dislike him. I distrust him. As you should. My lady, Petter Baelish delivered you to the Boltons. The words entered the room like cold air. Podrick looked down quickly. Sansa's hand stilled over the parchment. For a moment she felt the old instinct. Smooth the moment. Excuse the powerful, make pain more comfortable for those who had not felt it. Then she let that instinct die. Yes, she said. He did. Brienne's face softened with anger on Sansa's behalf. Then, why leave any path for him? Because he commands men we may need. There are some debts too costly. I know. Sansa folded a finished letter. Better than most. Brienne said nothing. Sansa warmed the wax herself for the next seal. The red bead softened over the candle, gleaming like blood. Littlefinger believes everyone wants something more than what they say. Honor hides ambition. Love hides possession. Loyalty hides hunger. He is often right, which is why he is dangerous. But he has a weakness. No. What weakness? He thinks understanding a person's wound means owning them. Brienne frowned. He knows I want Winterfell, Sansa said. He knows I want revenge. He knows I am frightened and angry and that I have few choices. He will think that tells him what I will do. She pressed the seal down. It does not. A raven screamed from the cages outside the chamber, harsh and impatient. Sansa rose and crossed to the narrow window. Beyond the glass, Castle Black lay under snow. Men moved in the yard with torches. Free folk argued near the gate. Brothers of the Night's Watch watched everyone and trusted no one. Somewhere out in that darkness, Jon rode among mountain clans, carrying Robb's words into places Sansa had known only from maps and old Nan's stories. She envied him strangely. Not the cold, nor the danger, but the simplicity of asking men to fight with steel in hand. Her battlefield was quieter. Ink eye, memory, shamed eye. Men reading alone in halls, deciding whether they could bear to be cowards one more day. A knock came near midnight. Brienne opened the door with one hand on her sword. Ed Tollett stood outside, holding a small roll of parchment. Raven from Bear Island. Sansa took it quickly, then forced herself to slow. Hope, she had learned, must be handled like glass. The seal was plain. The hand inside was neat but blunt. Lady Sansa Stark. Bear Island knows no king but the king in the north, whose name was Stark. If Robb Stark's final words have reached Jon Snow, then those words will be honored beneath our roof. I have few men, fewer ships, and no patience for cowards. Tell Jon Snow that House Mormont remembers. Tell Sansa Stark that Bear Island's daughters do not forget what is done to wolves. Lyanna Mormont, Lady of Bear Island. Sansa read it twice. Then she handed it to Brienne. The knight's eyes moved over the words. She is very young? 10, perhaps? Brienne looked impressed. She rides better than most grown lords. She rules better too, I suspect. Ed peered in. Good news. Bear Island answers, Sansa said. Ed nodded. That's something. Very small something, island-wise. But something. Sansa almost laughed, and the sensation startled her. It had been so long since laughter rose without permission that she hardly recognized it. Thank you, Ed. He shifted, uncomfortable with gratitude. I'll tell the Raven it did well. He left. More letters went out before dawn. Some to houses. One to a man Sansa was not sure existed in the place old stories claimed. Howland Reed, Lord of Greywater Watch, if this finds you. She wrote that Bran and Rickon had once vanished near the neck, that Robb had marked the reeds with a question, and that if any friend of Eddard Stark still watched from the mists, now was the hour to step from them. She did not know if the Raven would find Greywater. She did not know if Greywater wished to be found, but she sent it anyway. Near morning, Podrick fell asleep with his head on folded cloaks. Brienne stood by the fire, still awake through sheer stubbornness. Sansa remained at the table with one blank sheet before her. The letter to Littlefinger. She had delayed because every word written to him became a mirror in which he would try to see her thoughts. If she sounded desperate, he would press. If she sounded cold, he would suspect counsel. If she refused him, he would come anyway and claim virtue. If she invited him, he would think he had won. At last, she dipped the quill. Lord Baelish. Winterfell is held by House Bolton. You know what was done there, because your choices placed me within its walls. If the Vale still honors the blood of House Arryn and the memory of Catelyn Stark, then let its strength move north quietly and await word. Do not enter the field until summoned. Do not send terms through Bolton hands. Do not mistake this request for forgiveness. Sansa Stark. She sanded the page and read it once. Brienne came closer. Is that wise? No, Sansa said. But it is necessary. He may not obey. No. But he will want to know what I intend. That curiosity will bring him where I can see him. Brienne studied her with something between worry and pride. You should sleep. Sansa folded the letter. I used to sleep in Winterfell. You will again. The certainty in Brienne's voice was so simple it hurt. Sansa looked toward the window. The first thin light of morning touched the snow beyond the glass. Somewhere south, Ramsay Bolton woke in her father's castle. Perhaps he smiled over breakfast. Perhaps he hunted. Perhaps he spoke Rickon's name. Her fingers closed around the folded letter until the parchment bent. Not just sleep, Sansa said. Brienne waited. Sansa placed the letter beside the others. I will rule there, she said quietly. If not as queen, then as the woman who made sure no girl is ever handed through those gates to a monster again. Brienne bowed her head, not as a servant, but as a knight before a vow. Outside, the ravens began to fly. Rickon Stark remembered Winterfell mostly as size. Huge walls, huge doors, huge tables, huge wolves, huge voices calling his name when he ran too far ahead. He remembered Bran laughing from above him, always above him, climbing where no one else could go. He remembered Robb ruffling his hair and smelling of horse and leather. He remembered Jon kneeling to show him how to hold a wooden sword. He remembered Father's hand, heavy and warm, settling on his shoulder. The rest came in pieces. Fire, shouting, Theon's face trying to be hard and failing. Osha pulling him through darkness. The crypts. Bran leaving. Running. Duh. Always running. By the time the snows deepened around last hearth, Rickon no longer cried for Winterfell. Crying had been a thing from another life, like clean sheets and hot bread. Osha said crying wasted water and told enemies where to look. Shaggy Dog did not cry either. The black dire wolf growled, hunted, snapped, slept with one eye open, and loved Rickon with a fierceness that had no gentleness left in it. They sheltered in an old hunter's hut half buried beneath snow and pine needles. The roof leaked when ice melted. Smoke escaped badly from the stone vent, so they used fire only when the wind covered the smell. Osha trapped rabbits and once a fox. Rickon learned to chew tough meat without complaint. He learned that hunger made the world sharp. He learned that men who smiled could still mean harm. We should go back, he said one evening. Osha was sharpening her knife. Back where? Winterfell. Her hand stopped. Rickon stared at the little fire. It's ours. Aye. And full of men who'd skin you for the pleasure of hanging your hide near the gate. Nah, I'm not afraid. That's because you're stupid. He glared at her. Once, he would have thrown something. He was too old for that now, or thought he was. I'm a Stark. Hey, Osha said. That's why half the North would crown you and the other half would sell you before supper. Being a Stark, don't stop arrows. Jon would help. Jon's at the wall. Then we go to him. With every Bolton and Umber eye looking for a dark-haired boy and a black wolf, we'd make it half a day. Shaggy Dog raised his head and growled. Osha went still. Rickon felt it too. The change in air before danger showed itself. He had learned that from the wolf. Silence had textures. This silence was wrong. Osha kicked snow over the fire and grabbed her spear. Back, she whispered. Rickon moved behind the stacked furs. Shaggy Dog slid toward the door, shoulders low. Hooves crunched outside. A man's voice called, "Wildling woman, we know you're in there." Osha's eyes flicked to the rear wall. There was no door, only a loose plank they had prepared weeks ago. Rickon's heart began to pound. "Come out and no one needs to bleed," the voice said. Osha leaned close to Rickon. "When I say you crawl, don't run till you're under the pines. I won't leave you. She grabbed his face hard enough to hurt. "You will, little lord, or I'll haunt you meaner than any dead king." The door burst inward. Shaggy Dog hit the first man like black storm. The hut filled with screams, splintering wood, snow, and blood. Osha moved low, knife flashing. Rickon crawled through the loose plank as the world behind him became snarls and curses. Cold slapped his face. He wriggled into the snow, scrambled up and ran. He made it 10 steps before a rider cut him off. The horse reared. Rickon fell backward. The rider leaned down, face hidden beneath a fur hood, and reached for him. Shaggy Dog came through the wall. Not the door. The wall. Rotten planks shattered as the direwolf exploded from the hut, jaws red, eyes burning. The horse screamed and threw its rider. Rickon rolled away as Osha appeared, bleeding from one temple, dragging a spear from a dead man's chest. "Run!" she shouted. They ran. More riders came between the trees. Umbermen, Rickon thought, though banners were hidden. He knew the last hearth badge from old lessons he had pretended not to hear. Chains clinked. Men shouted for nets. Not arrows. Nets. They want us alive. That frightened him more. Shaggy Dog took another man down, but a weighted net caught one of his hind legs. He tore free, limping. Osha threw her knife and hit a rider in the throat. Rickon ran until his lungs burned. Then he slipped on ice beneath the snow and slammed hard into the ground. A horn sounded. Not Umber. The riders faltered. From the left, men burst from the pines in sealskin and green wool. Manderly men, though Rickon did not know them. From the right came 3 figures in dark cloaks, moving fast and low. One cut the rope of a net before it could close around Shaggy Dog. Another drove a spear into an Umber horse's path, forcing it aside. A woman's voice shouted, "The boy! Get the boy!" Osha reached Rickon first. She hauled him up by the back of his cloak. "Move, wolf pup!" But the Umbers were not done. One, bigger than the rest, dismounted and came at Osha with an axe. She met him with the spear, but he knocked it aside and struck her hard across the face. She fell. Rickon screamed. Shaggy Dog turned. The big man froze. A new voice cut through the chaos. "Drop the axe!" Everyone stilled enough to look. A young woman in a travel cloak stood at the edge of the trees with a drawn bow. Willa Manderly did not look like a warrior from songs. She looked cold, angry, and very certain. The arrow aimed at the Umber's eye. The man spat. "This is Umber business." "Not anymore. He's going to Lord Ramsay." Rickon's stomach turned. Willa's mouth twisted. "No, he isn't." "Nutty, Gunchidman." The man laughed. "You'll start a war for a boy?" Another voice answered from behind her. "Wars have started for less worthy reasons." Davos Seaworth stepped into view with a short sword in hand and snow to his knees. He looked older than everyone around him and far less frightened. The Umber looked him over. "Who are you?" "No one who matters to you, which is why you should listen. Men who don't matter are often the last ones you underestimate." The Umber lifted his axe slightly. Willa shot him. The arrow struck his shoulder, not his eye. He staggered back with a roar. Shaggy Dog lunged, and only Rickon's sharp cry stopped the wolf from tearing his throat out. "Shaggy, no!" The wolf halted, snarling inches from the man's face. The remaining Umbers looked at one another. Their advantage had broken. They had expected prey, not a fight witnessed by Manderly agents and a smuggler carrying secrets. One by one, they backed toward their horses. "This isn't done," one called. Davos pointed his sword at him. "It never is." They rode off with their wounded vanishing between the pines. For a moment, no one moved. Then Osha groaned and sat up. Blood ran down her cheek. Rickon threw himself at her. She cursed and held him anyway. "Stupid boy," she said, voice thick. "Told you to run." "I did. Not far enough." Davos approached slowly, eyes fixed on Shaggy Dog. "That wolf yours?" Rickon glared. "He's not mine. No, Davos said. I suppose not. Willa lowered her bow and looked at Rickon with something that made him uncomfortable. Reverence, perhaps. Or grief. People had looked at Robb like that near the end, when they forgot he was his brother and saw only a crown. You are Rickon Stark, she said. Rickon lifted his chin. Who wants to know? Davos knelt in the snow, so they were nearly eye to eye. A friend of your brother? Bran? No. Robb's dead. I know. Rickon's face hardened. Davos spoke gently. Jon. The name landed like warmth. Rickon stared at him, trying to decide whether this was another trap built from things he wanted. Osha struggled to her feet behind him, knife in hand again despite her bleeding face. Jon's at the wall, Rickon said. He was. He sent men looking for you. Why? Because Winterfell needs you. Because your sister Sansa lives. Because Robb left words behind, and those words have set the North moving. No. I'm telling. Osha's eyes narrowed. Words don't move the North. Food, fear, and blood do. Hey, Davos said. We have some of each. Rickon searched his face. Sansa lives? She does. Is she safe? As safe as anyone at Castle Black, which is to say surrounded by killers, but mostly the friendly sort. Osha gave him a suspicious look. Davos looked at her. You kept him alive. Then I owe you more than I can pay. You do. For the first time, Davos smiled. Willa stepped closer. We must move. If those men reach Last Hearth, others will come. Mayan. Where? Osha asked. White Harbor, Willa said. No, Davos said. Willa turned. My grandfather said... Your grandfather said bring him north of the knife if possible. It is not possible. Too many roads watched. Too many men know now. We go west first, then north by hidden tracks. Osha studied him. You know hidden tracks? No, Davos said. But I know when I don't, and I know how to follow people who do. A Manderly scout raised a hand. There are old charcoal paths through the woods, dangerous in snow. Dangerous for us or for them? Yes, the scout said. Davos sighed. I miss ships. Rickon looked south through the trees, though Winterfell was far beyond sight. He had dreamed of returning as a boy with a wolf, bursting through the gate and finding everything restored because he wanted it badly enough. Now he understood that wanting did not restore. Men did. Women did. Wolves did. Blood did. He looked at Davos. Jon is coming? Davos nodded. Eh? For Winterfell? For Winterfell. Rickon touched Shaggy Dog's blood-matted fur. The wolf leaned into him, trembling with restrained violence. Good, Rickon said. He sounded older than he felt. Behind them, the hunter's hut burned where a fallen ember had found dry thatch. Smoke rose into the white sky, marking the end of hiding. Ramsay Bolton disliked uncertainty because it denied him the pleasure of choosing where to cut. Pain was simple when properly studied. Every person had a door. Some doors opened to fear, some to shame, some to love, some to pride. The trick was not brutality, though Ramsay enjoyed brutality well enough. The trick was patience. Find the door, touch it gently. Let the victim understand you had found it, and only then decide whether to enter. The North had many doors. Roose had taught him that, though never with sufficient appreciation for the art. Roose Bolton had believed fear should be quiet, efficient, bloodless when possible. A peeled finger beneath a glove, a whispered threat, a bridegroom's cloak hiding a dagger. Ramsay had learned the lesson and improved it. Fear did not merely hold men. Fear could sing if played correctly. He sat in the great hall of Winterfell beneath banners that still looked new in places where stark cloth had once hung. The flayed man rippled faintly in the draft. Ramsay liked the movement. It made the red figure seem alive. Before him stood 3 men who had failed to bring Rickon Stark. One had an arrow hole in his shoulder. One kept glancing at the doors. The third had not stopped sweating despite the cold hall. Ramsay let them stand long enough for their legs to ache. "You found him," he said at last. The wounded man swallowed. "Aye, my lord," but did not bring him. "There were Manderly men." Ramsay smiled. "Manderly men." The sweating man spoke too quickly. "Not openly, my lord. No banners. Could been Sellswords, could be've been." Ramsay looked at him. The man stopped. Ramsay leaned back. Could have been ghosts, perhaps. Wolves wearing merman skins. Children with swords. Onions with legs. The wounded man stared at the floor. "And the wildling woman?" Ramsay asked. "Alive when we left." "The wolf?" "Alive." "Rickon?" No one answered. Ramsay's smile thinned. "Alive, then." The man who had glanced at the doors finally found his courage or lost his senses. "We can find him again, my lord. He can travel fast with the woman and beast. Give us more men and—" "More men," Ramsay repeated. "You had men. Now you have fewer." The hall remained silent. Even the torches seemed to burn carefully. Ramsay stood. He walked down from the high seat slowly. The men watched him approach with the hope that if they looked sufficiently ashamed, shame might be accepted in place of punishment. Ramsay almost admired the optimism. He stopped before the wounded man. "Who shot you?" "A girl. Manderly, I think." "A girl," Ramsay said softly. The man's face reddened. Ramsay patted his uninjured shoulder. "The North is full of surprises." He turned to the sweating man. "And you? Did you run before or after the girl shot him?" "My lord, Ramsay drove a knife into his belly. The man gasped, more surprised than pained at first. Ramsay held him close, almost tenderly, and spoke near his ear. "That is for speaking too quickly." He pulled the knife free and let the man fall. The hall exhaled without sound. Ramsay looked at the other two. "Take him away. If he lives until morning, hang him. If he dies before then, hang him anyway. I dislike unfinished instructions." The guards dragged the man out, leaving a dark smear across the stone. Ramsay returned to the high seat, mood improved but not restored. Rickon Stark alive in the woods was a problem. Rickon Stark in Manderly hands was a larger one. If Sansa had reached Jon Snow, and if Jon Snow had left the wall, then pieces were moving that Ramsay had not placed. That annoyed him. A maester entered with a raven scroll. The old man's hands trembled slightly. Ramsay enjoyed that too. "From last hearth?" he asked. "No, my lord. From a rider on the King's Road. Reports of movement near the mountain tracks." "Stannis remnants?" "No, my lord. Clansmen, perhaps." Ramsay opened the scroll. The words were cautious, which made them nearly useless. "Strange fires. Missing scouts. A Bolton strap found hanging from a tree with no body beneath it. Rumors of a black wolf in the woods. Rumors of Jon Snow riding south. Rumors of wildlings held in discipline rather than loose to raid." That last detail interested him. Jon Snow was supposed to be dead or bound to the wall. Ramsay had considered sending him a letter eventually. Something charming. Something with pieces of Sansa folded between the lines, had she still been available for folding. But if Snow moved now, with clansmen and wildlings and perhaps Manderly whispers, then the game had begun without Ramsay's invitation. He hated poor manners. The hall doors opened again. Harold Karstark entered, lean and grim, his grief sharpened into obedience. Beside him came small Jon Umber, broad, angry and smelling faintly of horse and winter. Ramsay had expected shame from Umber. Instead he saw irritation, which was more useful. "You lost the boy," Ramsay said. Smalljon's jaw worked. "My men found him." Manderly rats interfered. "Rats are difficult creatures. They thrive in walls." "Nay, and poor Mal. They had help." "Yes, I gathered that from all the failing." Smalljon stepped closer. Bolton guards shifted. Stark watched with hooded eyes. "I never swore to catch Stark pups for your amusement," Jon said. "I came because wildlings crossed the wall and Snow let them. You said you'd protect the north from them." "I will." "Then stop smiling and do it." Ramsay's smile widened. There it was. The door. Not loyalty. Not love. Fear disguised as pride. Jon Umber did not serve Ramsay because he admired him. He served because he feared a north overrun by free folk more than a north ruled by Boltons. That fear could be pulled, twisted, tightened. "Jon Snow marches with wildlings," Ramsay said. "If he takes Winterfell, what do you imagine happens to Last Hearth? Will he settle them on Mormont land? Manderly land? No. He will give them the gift first, then land near those who resisted him. Your lands, your dead, your daughters." Smoljan's eyes darkened. Stark spoke. "If Snow has clansmen, the matter is worse. Men may rally to him." "Men rally to names," Ramsay said. "Names can be ruined." He looked toward the dais where the flayed banners hung over Stark stone. "What does Snow want?" he asked. No one answered. Ramsay did not need them to. Winterfell, Sansa, Rickon, legitimacy, revenge, the affection of frightened old men who still whisper Ned Stark's name into their cups. He laughed softly. "We need only choose which desire to poison first." "Kill Rickon," Stark said. Smoljan glanced at him. Ramsay noticed. "You disapprove? He's a boy. He is a banner. Banners are cloth until men die for them." Smoljan's mouth tightened. "Dead, he may be more dangerous." Ramsay's eyes gleamed. "Good. You are learning." He rose and walked to the hearth. The fire burned high, but Winterfell never felt warm to him. Perhaps because the Starks had built too much memory into the stones. Ramsay sometimes thought the castle resented him. He lacked that. It gave him something vast to injure. "We do not kill Rickon unless he is in our hand or useless beyond it," Ramsay said. "We send word instead, not to Snow first, to the houses." Stark frowned. "What word?" "That Jon Snow has broken his vows, raised a wildling army, and means to steal Winterfell from his true-born sister and younger brother alike. That Sansa Stark is in league with the sorceress who burned men for Stannis. That Manderly hides treason beneath his fat. That any lord who joins Snow joins raiders against the north." Smoljan nodded slowly. Ramsay looked at him. "You will write to Last Hearth. Demand men, not for me, for the protection of Umber lands against wildlings." Smoljan did not like being instructed, but he liked the words well enough. "And if Snow offers terms?" Stark asked. Ramsay smiled. "He won't. Honorable men always believe terms come after they have proven they are not afraid." A servant entered with another message, this one delivered by Ryder. Ramsay took it and broke the seal. He read. For the first time that day, the smile left his face. The message was brief. A Bolton scout had been found alive near the mountain road, tied naked to a tree with his ears removed and a strip of parchment pinned to his chest. The parchment bore no seal, only 6 words. "The wolves know the hidden roads." Ramsay stared at the words. Then he began to laugh. It startled the hall. Men shifted uneasily. Smoljan frowned. Stark's eyes narrowed. "Robb?" Ramsay said. "My lord?" Stark asked. Ramsay looked up, delighted now. Truly delighted. "Robb Stark's hand is in this. The young wolf is dead." "Yes," Ramsay said. "Isn't that wonderful?" He could see it now. The discipline, the quiet movement, the approach to clans and Manderlys before open challenge. This was not merely Jon Snow's honor lumbering south with wildlings behind it. Someone had given the bastard a dead king's cunning. A secret letter. A surviving plan? A loyal lord's memory? It did not matter yet. It would. Ramsay crumpled the parchment in his fist. "Send ravens," he said. "Every house, every road, Double scouts west and north. Triple watchers near White Harbor. I want singers sent to alehouses with songs of wildling raids, whether raids happen or not. I want septons whispering that Snow is undead, cursed, a corpse wearing a Stark face. I want every mother from Last Hearth to Barrowton dreaming of red-haired savages at her door. Karstark bowed. Smalljan looked uneasy. And Rickon? Ramsay turned toward the high windows, where Snow tapped faintly against the glass. Find him, he said. But do not rush. Let the North hear his name first. Let them remember what he is. Hope tastes better when stolen late. He looked back at the hall. And send a letter to Castle Black. Karstark waited. Ramsay's smile returned, slow and bright and poisonous. Tell Jon Snow I am sorry to hear of his death. Ask whether he enjoyed it enough to try again. The captured Bolton scout was younger than Jon expected. That made it worse, somehow. Not because youth excused him. Jon had been young when he killed. Robb had been young when men crowned him. The boy had chosen or been chosen to ride beneath the flayed man, and the difference mattered less to those he might have betrayed. Still, when they dragged him before the clan fires, with his hands tied and terror shining in his eyes, Jon saw Ollie for one sickening moment and had to look away. Big Bucket Wool wanted to hang him. Scouts are knives, the old man said. You don't question a knife. You take it from the dark and snap it. None. Tormund agreed, though with more enthusiasm and less poetry. Jon crouched before the prisoner. Name. The boy spat near his boot because fear sometimes disguised itself as courage badly. Tormund moved, but Jon lifted a hand. Name, Jon repeated. The boy's lip trembled. Mark. House? None. Who sent you? No answer. Jon looked at Ghost. The direwolf sat beside the fire, red eyes reflecting flame, still as carved ice. Mark followed Jon's gaze and began breathing faster. I do not need the wolf to hurt you, Jon said. And I will not use him to frighten answers from you if you give them freely. Big Bucket snorted. Soft. Jon did not turn. Who sent you? Karstark men gave the order, Mark said at last. Bolton paid. How many scouts? I don't know. Jon waited. 20 near the western road, more near Long Lake, riders going to Last Hearth. Men watching for wildlings. Men watching White Harbor roads. Do they know about the clans? They guessed. Do they know I am here? Mark hesitated. Ghost's ears shifted. Yes, the boy whispered. The clans muttered. Jon stood. This was the cost of movement. No plan survived contact with fear, greed, weather, hunger, or one boy with a horse and orders. Robb had known that too. His map did not promise secrecy forever. It promised time. How long before Ramsay hears? Jon asked. He may already. Big Bucket gripped his axe. Then we march now. No, Jon said. No? You want to wait until every Bolton bastard digs in behind Winterfell's walls? I want Ramsay uncertain. He knows you're here. He does not know how many. He does not know which houses have answered. He does not know where Rickon is. Me. Sure. Jon hoped that was true. He looked toward the south. Snow fell through the trees in steady silence. Somewhere beyond those dark trunks, roads bent toward Winterfell. Every instinct in him wanted speed. Ride hard. Gather what men he had. Strike before Ramsay could breathe. But that was anger speaking, and anger sounded too much like the battlefield Ramsay wanted. Jon unfolded Robb's map before the clan chiefs. The parchment had begun to soften at the creases despite careful handling. Robb marked 3 approaches to Winterfell from the north and west, he said. The obvious road here, a hunter's route through broken ground here, and a supply path old enough that Bolton men may not know it unless their guides are good. The Nori chief leaned in. We know that path. Can men move through it? Men, yes. Horses, no. Wagons, no. Good. We do not move an army through it. We move rumor. Big Bucket frowned. Rumor? Small fires. Broken branches. Tracks enough for scouts to find. Make Ramsay think a large force is trying to hide badly on the western approach. Good. Tormund grinned. I know men who hide badly without trying. Take them, Jon said. The grin faded. That was a jest. Now, it is a command. Some of the clansmen laughed. Jon pointed to the main road. We leave signs of wildlings here. Obvious ones. Feathers, bone charms, whatever will frighten Umber men. Tormund's grin returned. Now you're learning. No raids, Jon said. Do I look like a fool? Jon gave him a flat stare. Tormund shrugged. Fair? We draw Bolton scouts west and Umber riders north. Meanwhile, the clans move in smaller groups through these ravines. Not toward Winterfell yet. Toward the roads feeding it. No open battle. Cut messages. Take horses. Leave men alive when it serves us. Dead when it must. Big Bucket's smile grew. That sounds less soft. Jon looked at Mark, who was shaking now. And this one carries a message. The old man's smile vanished. You'd let him go? Yes. He'll tell them everything. He'll tell them what we choose. Tormund rubbed his beard. What if he runs somewhere else? He won't, Jon said. Mark stared up at him, disbelieving. Jon knelt again. You will ride south. You will tell them Jon Snow is with 500 clansmen and 3,000 wildlings. I don't know how many. Exactly. Tell them what I said. Tell them the free folk are restless and hard to control. Tell them the clans argue among themselves. Tell them I mean to march within the week. Mark swallowed. Why would I? Because if you do not, the clans will hang you, and I may not stop them twice. Big Bucket chuckled. Jon leaned closer. And because Ramsay Bolton will kill you for failing unless you bring something useful. I am giving you something useful. No. The boy understood then. Jon saw it happen. What if he knows it's false? He will know some of it is false. That is why he will believe some of it may be true. Sansa would have said it better. Davos too, perhaps. But the shape of it was right. Ramsay could ignore an obvious lie, or doubt an obvious truth. A half-truth with fear attached would trouble him more. Jon cut the rope binding Mark's hands. Big Bucket grumbled. Young Wolf would have taken his ears. Young Wolf wrote the plan, Jon said. I choose what parts to carry. The old man stared at him, then laughed. Hey, maybe you are Ned's son after all. Mark was given a half-starved horse, a cloak, and no weapon. Before he rode, Jon gripped the horse's bridle. One more thing, he said. The boy looked at him. If Ramsay asks what you saw in my face, tell him I am not angry. Mark blinked. Tell him I am patient. The boy rode south. When he vanished into the trees, Tormund came to stand beside Jon. You are angry, the wildling said. Yes. You are not patient. No. Tormund grunted. Good lie then. Jon watched the trail until snow swallowed it. That night, the clans began their work. They moved like wolves, but not as one pack. Small bands slipped south and east. Fires appeared where no army camped. Tracks crossed frozen streams, doubled back, vanished on stone. Bolton scouts found bone charms hanging from branches and wolf prints pressed deliberately into snow. Men woke to find their horses gone, and their saddles piled neatly in the road. Ravens failed to arrive. One Bolton messenger returned to Winterfell, wearing only his small clothes, and carrying a carved wooden wolf in his mouth, because the little boys thought that was funny. Jon did not approve of every detail. He did not stop all of them either. War was not clean simply because honorable men entered it. Robb's plan understood that better than father might have. Jon began to understand it too. Mercy mattered, but mercy without victory could become another name for surrender. Justice mattered, but justice needed living hands. 2 days later, a rider from Bear Island reached the clan camp. She was short, fierce-eyed, and wrapped in a bear cloak too large for her shoulders. At first, Jon thought she was another messenger. Then she pushed back her hood, and every Mormont man with her seemed to stand taller. Lyanna Mormont looked around the camp as if judging whether it deserved her presence. Jon bowed slightly. "Lady Mormont, you are Jon Snow." "I am." Her eyes dropped to ghost, then rose again. "You look less dead than rumors claim." Tormund laughed aloud. Jon's mouth twitched. "I feel less dead most mornings." "Good. Dead men make poor commanders." "No, I." Big Bucket barked approval. "I like this cub." Lyanna ignored him. "I received Lady Sansa's letter. I have brought 62 fighting men, 12 women who shoot better than most men, and 3 boys who lied about their age badly enough that I let them come because courage should not be wasted merely because it is stupid." Jon stared at her. She stared back. "That is more than Bear Island can spare," he said. "It is exactly what Bear Island can spare." I counted. I know what you meant." Lyanna stepped closer. "My mother died fighting for Robb Stark. My house bled for the king in the north while great lords counted excuses. If Robb named you, I will hear the proof. If the proof is true, Bear Island will honor it. If it is false, I will call you liar before every man here." The camp went quiet. Jon studied the girl. She could not have been more than 10, perhaps 11. But there was iron in her that age had not softened because childhood had not been allowed to protect it. He wondered if Rickon looked older now too. He took out Robb's letter and gave her the page bearing the seal and first command. Lyanna read with careful slowness. No one interrupted. When she finished, she held the parchment a moment longer. "My mother's name is not here," she said. "No." She would have liked that. She hated being predictable. Jon did not know what to say. Lyanna handed the parchment back. "Robb Starks will name you heir, only if no trueborn child of Eddard Stark is found free and living." "Yes." "And Rickon Stark may live." "Yes." "Then you do not claim Winterfell over him?" "No." "Do you claim command?" Jon felt every eye on him. "I claim the duty Robb gave me," he said. "To take back Winterfell, to protect the North, to fight the dead when they come." Lyanna watched him with a severity that would have unnerved men 3 times her age. "That is not an answer fit for singers. I have had enough of singers." "Good," she said. "Singers lie." Tormund leaned toward Big Bucket. "I want one of these bear girls." Lyanna turned her stare on him. Tormund cleared his throat. Respectfully. Jon hid another almost smile. The arrival of Bear Island changed the camp. Not by numbers alone, though every spear mattered. It changed the shape of belief. The clans had answered memory. The Mormonts answered Robb's seal. When men saw a child lady ride through snow to honor a dead king's hidden words, shame traveled faster than ravens. By the next morning, 3 minor houses sent riders asking where to gather. By evening, Serwan men began appearing in pairs and 4s, claiming they had been hunting. No one asked what game they hunted with swords. On the 3rd day, a message came from Sansa. Jon read it beside the fire while Ghost slept at his feet. "Bear Island has answered. Glover delays. Serwan trembles. Littlefinger will move. I have warned him not to enter the field until summoned, which means he will try to learn when he is most useful, and arrive when he believes I am most desperate. Use that. Davos has not returned, but White Harbor has sent no denial. Ramsay knows enough to be afraid and not enough to be wise. That may be our best opening." At the bottom, in smaller writing, she had added, "Do not let him make you angry." Jon folded the letter. Too late, he thought. But anger no longer ruled him alone. Robb's plan lay in his cloak. Sansa's words sat in his mind. The clans moved through the woods. Bear Island sharpened its axes. White Harbor stirred beneath ice. Rickon might live. The North was not risen yet, but it was waking. They brought Rickon to the hidden camp under a moon thin as a blade. Jon heard Shaggy Dog before he saw him. The growl moved through the trees like a warning from the old gods. Ghost rose beside Jon, silent and alert, his white fur silver in the moonlight. Men reached for weapons until Jon lifted a hand. Something in his chest had already recognized what his eyes had not. Branches shifted. Davos came first, limping slightly, cloak torn, beard crusted with frost. Behind him walked Osha with a bandage around her brow and a knife in each hand, because one apparently did not satisfy her sense of caution. Willa Manderly followed with 2 scouts and 3 hard-eyed men carrying packs. Then the black direwolf emerged from the trees, leaner than ghost, darker than night, blood dried in the fur at his neck, and beside him was a boy. Not the little boy Jon remembered. Rickon Stark stood in a ragged fur cloak with wild dark hair to his shoulders and eyes that had learned too early to distrust joy. He was taller, though still small enough that the sword at one Manderly man's belt hung nearly to his ankle when he glanced at it. His face was thinner. There was dirt on his cheek. One hand rested in Shaggy Dog's fur. For a moment, Jon could not move. Rickon stared at him with the same wariness. Then Ghost stepped forward. Shaggy Dog's lips peeled back. "Ghost," Jon said softly. The white direwolf stopped. Shaggy Dog sniffed the air. The growl lowered but did not vanish. Ghost took one more careful step. The wolves stood nose to nose under the pines, 2 pieces of the same broken home, one white as death, one black as grief. Then Shaggy Dog huffed, and Ghost pressed his head briefly against his brother's. Rickon's face crumpled. He ran. Jon caught him hard enough to stagger. Rickon clung like a much younger child, fists twisted in Jon's cloak, face buried against his chest. Jon held him and felt, with a force that nearly broke him, how small his brother still was beneath all that wildness. "You're alive," Rickon said, voice muffled. "So are you. They said you died." "I did." Rickon pulled back just enough to glare through tears. "That's stupid." Jon laughed then, a rough sound that hurt his chest. "Hey, it was." Rickon punched him weakly in the ribs. "Don't do it again." "I'll try not to." The camp had gone very quiet. Men looked away or pretended to check saddles. Big Bucket wiped his nose with the back of his hand and claimed loudly that the smoke was poor. Lyanna Mormont watched with solemn eyes. Tormund looked uncomfortable in the presence of family grief, and therefore drank. Sansa arrived before dawn. A rider had been sent the moment Davos reached the outer scouts. She came with Brienne, Podrick, and a small escort, her horse lathered and her face pale from the speed of travel. When she saw Rickon standing beside the fire, she dismounted before the horse fully stopped. Rickon froze. Sansa did too. The years between them were different years. She remembered a little brother who had shouted, thrown walnuts, and followed Bran. He remembered a sister in fine gowns who smelled of soap and songs and had vanished into the south. Now she stood in black wool with red hair braided beneath a hood, and he stood half feral beside a direwolf with blood on his muzzle. "Rickon," she whispered. He looked at Osha, as if asking permission without wanting to be seen asking. Osha jerked her chin. He went to Sansa. She knelt in the snow and took his face in both hands. For a moment, she only looked at him, as if trying to memorize what survival had done before it could steal anything else. Then she pulled him close. Rickon resisted for half a heartbeat and then folded into her. Jon turned away. Not because he did not want to see it, but because seeing it made him want too many impossible things. Robb died. Arya. Bran. You. Mother, though she had never been his. Father most of all. Every reunion now carried the shape of those missing from it. Davos came to stand beside him. "We nearly lost him." Jon nodded. "But you didn't." "No, Osha did more than I." Osha, overhearing, snorted. "Damn right." Jon looked at her. "You saved my brother." She looked back with fierce suspicion, as though gratitude might be a trap. He saved himself plenty. Wolf too. Still, thank you. Me, Minta. Osha shrugged, but her eyes softened for the briefest moment. Your father was decent to me when he had no reason. Figured I owed the dead man something. We all do, Jon said. By full morning, the hidden camp had changed again. Rickon's presence did what letters could not. Men who had come for Robb's memory now saw Ned Stark's living son warming his hands by a fire. Women who had sharpened arrows in silence whispered his name. The Mormonts knelt. The clans did not kneel, but many bowed their heads. Serwyn riders arrived and openly wept. A Glover messenger who had come with cautious words found himself unable to deliver them, while Rickon sat beneath a pine eating stew beside Shaggy Dog. Sansa noticed everything. Jon saw her watching the way men watched Rickon. Love, hope, pity, calculation. A living Stark boy could unite the North, but he could also become another piece men moved across a board. Jon knew Sansa saw that too. They held council at dusk beneath a canvas stretched between trees. Robb's map lay on rough planks. This time, Rickon sat beside Sansa, Shaggy Dog behind him. Ghost lay at Jon's feet. Davos stood near the Manderly scouts. Lyanna Mormont sat upright on a stool too tall for her and refused any offer of a cushion. Big Bucket leaned on his axe. Tormund hovered near the edge, where he could leave quickly if politics became too civilized. Sansa began. Ramsay will know soon. He may know already, Davos said. The Umbers who escaped will talk. Then he knows Rickon lives, Jon said, and that he failed to take him. That will anger him, Sansa said. Good, Tormund said. No, Sansa and Jon said together. Tormund rolled his eyes. Kneelers hate useful feelings. Sansa ignored him. Ramsay's anger is dangerous, but his wounded pride is more useful. He will want to prove he is still in control. That means he may force the field sooner. Winterfell's stores? Davos asked. Strong enough to wait, Sansa said. But Ramsay will not want to wait if houses start slipping away. The Glover messenger cleared his throat. Every eye turned toward him. He had arrived that morning with apologies disguised as logistics and caution disguised as loyalty. Rickon's presence had stripped both thin. House Glover has suffered, he said carefully. Big Bucket groaned. Here comes the suffering. The messenger flushed. Deepwood Motte was taken by Ironborn while Robb Stark marched south. My lord feels... Your lord feels abandoned, Sansa said. The man blinked. He was, she continued. The North broke in many places while my brother fought. Robb could not mend them all. That truth does not make Ramsay Bolton rightful. It does not make cowardice wisdom. Tell Lord Glover that Rickon Stark lives. Tell him Robb's will has reached Jon. Tell him the Mormonts answered with less to give than he has. Tell him the mountain clans are already bleeding Bolton scouts in the woods. Then ask him how long he means to let a child show him courage. Nay. The messenger bowed his head, chastened. I will tell him. Tell him quickly, Lyanna Mormont said. Some of us grow tired of waiting for men with thicker walls to find their spines. Big Bucket roared with laughter. Even Tormund looked impressed. Jon pointed to the map before arguments could multiply. Ramsay expects us to march from the north with wildlings forward and clans loose in the woods. He may also expect Manderly support now that Rickon escaped with their help. We use both expectations. Davos nodded. Let him see what he expects where it does him least good. Here, Jon said, touching a rise northwest of Winterfell. Broken ground. Bad for cavalry if prepared. Robb marked it as a place to avoid if we were the ones charging. That means it can hurt Ramsay if he charges. Will he? Brienne asked. Sansa answered. If he thinks Jon is there and vulnerable. Jon looked at her. She did not soften the words. He wants you, not only dead, broken in front of the North. If he believes you are commanding the center, he will try to crush it. Then I command the center. No, Sansa said. The word landed hard. Jon frowned. Sansa, you cannot be bait and commander both. I won't hide while men fight. No one asked you to hide. I am asking you to win. The council went quiet. Sansa leaned over the map. Ramsay studies people. You will expect Jon to respond to threats against Rickon. You will expect the free folk to rush. You will expect northern pride to make us direct. We deny him all of it. Rickon stays far from the field. The center appears weaker than it is. The wildlings do not begin the battle. They finish it. The clans strike scouts and supply. The Vale. Jon looked up. Have they answered? Sansa's mouth tightened. Littlefinger is moving. Brienne's hand flexed. I received word before I left Castle Black, Sansa continued. The Knights of the Vale are crossing north under Lord Royce's command, though Pettier Baelish rides with them. Can they arrive in time? Davos asked. If we choose the field and delay Ramsay long enough, Sansa said. Big Bucket scratched his beard. I don't like battles won by men who arrive late. Nor do I, Sansa said. So they will not arrive late. They will arrive when Ramsay has committed. Jon studied her. You want to plan around Littlefinger obeying you? No, I want to plan around him wanting credit. He will come when he believes his arrival gives him the most power over me. We make that moment useful, then deny him the price. Davos looked almost admiring. That's a dangerous game. All games with Littlefinger are dangerous. Rickon had been silent, staring at the map as if it were written in another language. Now he spoke. What I do, I do. Everyone looked at him. Sansa's face softened. You stay safe. Rickon scowled. I'm not a baby. No, Jon said. You are the Lord of Winterfell. The words startled the camp. Rickon stared at him. Sansa turned slowly. Lyanna Mormont watched with fierce interest. Jon went on before anyone else could speak. Robb named me heir if no trueborn child of Eddard Stark could be found free and living. You are found. You are living. Winterfell is yours by right. No. Rickon looked frightened by that, which proved he understood more than he wanted to. I don't know how to be Lord. Neither did Robb when they crowned him, Jon said. Neither did I when they made me Lord Commander. You died. A poor example, Davos said quietly. A few men laughed softly. Jon knelt before Rickon, there in the snow and firelight, with Robb's map between them and the eyes of the North watching. You do not need to rule tonight. You need to live. Sansa will guide Winterfell. I will fight for it. The North will protect you until you are grown. Rickon swallowed. And if they want you instead? Jon heard the question beneath it. If they choose you, will you leave me behind too? He placed a hand on Rickon's shoulder. Then they will hear me name you before them. Sansa's eyes shone, though she did not weep. Lyanna Mormont stood. Bear Island witnesses. Big Bucket thumped his axe against the ground. The wolves hear. One by one, the others murmured agreement. It was not a coronation. Not yet. It was something older and rougher. A promise made before battle, beneath trees, with wolves in the snow and enemies closing. Later, when the council broke, Sansa found Jon near the edge of camp. He stood looking south, though Winterfell lay beyond hill and forest. You gave him Winterfell, she said. It was his. Many men have taken what was not theirs with less excuse than Robb's will. I am tired of men taking. She stood beside him. For a while they listened to the camp. Axes being sharpened, horses stamping, low voices, distant wolf sounds that might have been Ghost and Shaggy Dog, or only the wind trying to remember them. Robb did not know we lived, Sansa said. No, but he knew you. Jon looked at her. He knew you would do that, she said. Perhaps that is why he could name you, not because he wanted you to take everything, because he trusted you to give back what was not yours. Jon did not know what to do with that kindness. It felt heavier than blame. What about you? He asked. Sansa's gaze remained south. "I do not need to be Lady of Winterfell by name tonight. That is not what I asked." She breathed slowly. "I want Ramsay gone. I want our house restored. I want Rickon safe. I want the men who looked away to look me in the eyes when I return. I want Littlefinger to learn I am not a debt he can collect. And after, I will decide what I want when wanting is no longer a luxury." Jon nodded. A horn sounded softly from the outer scouts. Not alarm. Signal. A rider entered the camp minutes later, carrying a black feathered arrow wrapped in parchment. He brought it to Jon and knelt. The parchment bore no seal. Jon opened it. The message was written in a neat, cruel hand. "Dear bastard, I was saddened to hear you died, and delighted to hear you lacked the courtesy to stay that way. Come to Winterfell. Bring my wife. Bring the wildlings. Bring whatever old men and little girls still mistake your name for power. I'd had hoped to meet your youngest brother first, but you seem to have hidden him from me. No matter. All wolves come when called loudly enough. Winterfell is mine. Ramsay Bolton, Lord of Winterfell, Warden of the North." Jon read it once. Then he handed it to Sansa. She read without expression. Rickon came near, Shaggy Dog at his side. "What does he say?" Sansa folded the letter carefully. "He is afraid." Jon looked at her. She held the parchment to the fire and let the edge catch. Flame curled through Ramsay's words, blackening them into nothing. "He just does not know it yet," she said. The ashes lifted into the night. Around them, the hidden camp moved toward war. Men tightened straps. Women counted arrows. Manderly scouts marked roads. Mormonts checked axes. Clan chiefs argued over paths. Free folk sharpened dragonglass they did not yet know would matter more than steel. The two direwolves stood together at the edge of the firelight, one white, one black, watching the south with shared hunger. Jon drew Robb's map close and placed Ramsay's ashes beside Winterfell. The plan was no longer secret in truth. Too many men moved now. Too many ravens flew. Too many enemies listened. But secrecy had done its work. It had found the loyal, stirred the ashamed, rescued the boy, and forced Ramsay Bolton to look out from stolen walls and wonder how many wolves waited in the trees. Jon looked at Sansa, then Rickon, then the men and women who had come because a dead king's words had reached the living. "Tomorrow," he said, "we choose the field." The North did not cheer. Cheering was for summer soldiers and tourney nights. The North listened. The North remembered. The North sharpened its steel in the dark. And far to the south, beneath the gray walls of Winterfell, the Flayed banners snapped in the wind, unaware that winter had begun moving against them with a wolf's patience.